What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Gooner, a channel dedicated to all things Arsenal Football Club, who, as we all know, are by far the greatest team the world has ever seen. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at tomorrow's 3 o'clock kickoff away to Leicester, coming as it does a couple of hours before Man City kickoff against Bournemouth, giving us an opportunity, should we win it, to go 5 points clear with a game in hand, and the Premiership race is all but done and dusted at that point. But before we do go on to have a look at who's injured, who's playing, what the possible lineups will be, and all the other news from our beloved club, why not just take a moment and gently caress the subscribe button? That way you can be kept up to date with all of the news and views from our beloved club I post every single day. So a bit of news before we crack on with tomorrow's match. Football Insider has stuck its neck on the line. A lot of different publications and websites are talking about it like it's a done deal, but they have actually crossed the line and said that Saka has signed a new contract at Arsenal for £200,000 a week, and frankly, pay him twice that. As long as it's somebody else's money, pay him whatever it takes. I am absolutely thrilled if this comes across, and I think we all believe it will do. I don't think there's a real chance that I know that there were reports earlier in the month and seemingly since the start of the new year when we triggered the extension on his contract to 2024, people saying that Man City were sharking around him to see if they might be able to tempt him. If this does happen to be true, if he has signed a new contract, that is fantastic news, coming as it does in the same week that Nani signed an extension. I want to just really quickly talk about this because I've seen a lot of comments in and around Nani's contract extension arguing that because we've signed him and Jorginho, that means we might not be in for Declan Rice or Yuri Tielemans or a player of that kind. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think that signing Nani for an extra year and Jorginho's only on a 1 year, I don't see why that would necessarily pose a problem whatsoever. What I do think about the Nani contract extension is that, first of all, it is a brand new contract. So we did not trigger the clause which would have extended his previous contract. And he has taken a pay cut. Now, on the one hand, I do want to say loyalty in football should not all be one way, right? We should not always be talking about how we want players to stay loyal to us. What Nani has given us, and he is the longest serving player in the squad, what he has given us is more than just what he gives us on the pitch. He's no dummy on the pitch, and whenever he comes in, he does give a very solid performance, but it's more about what he does in and around the squad and how important that kind of family atmosphere is. Arteta is building a squad based on character rather than just statistics and skills, and that is part of the reason that we are gelling so well together, and I'm thrilled that we have shown a player who's injured a little bit of loyalty. It is not exactly going to break the bank, and I really don't see why people are worried that signing an extension of a year or offering a 1 year new contract to Nani might be anything that would interfere with a potential signing of Declan Rice. I have stayed away from talking about the signing of Declan Rice just because I don't want to talk about it until it's more formal. But there is there are a lot of rumours around that he has his heart set on joining Arsenal, and why wouldn't you? As I said at the beginning, we are by far the greatest team the world has ever seen. I will talk about that as more of that unfolds. Saliba, interesting how this kind of the press works around Arsenal at the moment. Very tight-lipped about almost everything from injuries to contracts. Arteta himself, when asked about Saka, for example, refused to comment, and I think he was asked about 3 or 4 times in the press conference. Also, when asked about Granit Xhaka, who I think we all believe is nailed on, he's apparently given authorization for that contract to be offered. Saka, when asked if Xhaka was signing, he also said not yet. Maybe there's something in the word yet. I think Saliba, though, I found really interesting the news coming out of the club that Arsenal was his boyhood club, that even when he was on loan, that he was really determined to play at least one game for Arsenal and that he's really happy at Arsenal. So if we're being really optimistic, we could say that Saka, Xhaka and Saliba are all going to sign and stay on to join Martinelli and Nani, who have as well. And it's a really good, a feel-good situation around contracts, which is not something that Arsenal fans can say has been true forever. Certainly, the kind of mistakes that we've made in the past seem to be being ironed out now. So now on to the business of tomorrow's game against Leicester. Leicester coming on the back of a 3-0 thumping by Manchester United, although I will say the scoreline was incredibly flattering and I really don't think that they deserved to be beaten the way they were. Sabitzer could easily have been sent off. Without going into too much detail, we could also look at the fact that Leicester before that had beaten Tottenham 4-1 and turned Aston Villa over 4-2. So again, as I seem to say every single week, going into the Premier League fixtures on a Saturday, there are no really easy games. Well, Chelsea maybe. There are no games. Well, Tottenham, Chelsea, but apart from those two, and unfortunately we have played Tottenham twice now, there are no easy games in the Premier League, and Leicester are no mugs. Leicester's team news is that James Maddison, who's been nursing a knee injury, is going to be assessed before the game, and it's touch and go. I think he'll probably play. And however, Johnny Evans and Ryan Bertrand are not fit to play. For Arsenal, almost a full squad to pick from, with Emile Smith-Rowe and Reece Nelson back in squad and contention, most likely on the subs bench. Bukayo Saka, despite being kicked all over the park against Villa, is somehow fit. I think he must just be bionic. Certainly he's an unnaturally brilliant player. Thomas Partey, who, as we know, missed the last 2 games, is still not 100%, but could well start tomorrow. And if not, I would expect him to be deputised by Jorginho again, and perhaps he can score another goal off the keeper's head tomorrow. Gabriel Jesus is making fantastic progress according to Mikel Arteta, but is not expected to be back at least for a couple of weeks yet. And I think, I've said this for a while now, I would be optimistic for the Fulham game. Now with the Sporting Lisbon game sandwiching that one, perhaps we could see him phased into the first game of the Europa League, and that might be a good way to reintroduce him. Certainly, there are no other key injuries in the squad now, with the exception, of course, of Nani, who is unlikely to be fit until the middle of summer and possibly later. I heard somewhere this week that it might be as late as November, which again, is just great that we're giving him the contract, even though he's not injured, even though he's not fit, rather. So how are we likely to line up against Leicester? In goal, I don't think there's any question whatsoever that Ramsdale stays in goal. He is our number one, and had it not been for his world-class save against Villa, we may be looking at a completely different journey to Leicester this week with totally different morale. Right back, I expect Ben White to keep his place in a flat back 4 alongside Saliba and Gabriel as centre-backs. And I suppose the question that has come up a fair bit this week is around Kieran Tierney. There are murmurings that he's going to be looking at his contract situation with us in summer with a view to how much game time he's going to get. I've made this point already. Kieran Tierney is a wonderful left back. I don't think he's going to start against Leicester tomorrow. I think we are going to see Zinchenko. I think the second half of the Aston Villa game, Zinchenko played much more of a midfield role and we went to a back 3. That's an option that he gives us when we are chasing the game, and hopefully we won't be tomorrow. But I imagine that it would be the Europa League that Kieran Tierney is going to get minutes in. And if he has a good run of games in that, who knows, maybe he can regain his place from Zinchenko. And at the moment, that's looking like a little way off. Zinchenko, for me, I think starts tomorrow. And despite the people criticising him, I think we were all a little frustrated with him in the first half against Villa. But, he really showed the kind of character that the team was showing in scoring the equaliser. And I think he keeps his place just on that, to be honest with you. Thomas Partey is a doubt, so assuming he isn't quite fit, we'd expect Jorginho to deputise for him. Next to him, Granit Xhaka, ever present. Seems like Arteta will pick him every single time he can. Personally, I think that he looked tired against Villa. I've never seen him look so tired. He definitely deserves a little bit of a rest or a break, but maybe this week has been all he needs. He is a player with an incredible engine and gives us so much in terms of tackles per game and interceptions. Perhaps, as we discussed, or as I discussed before the Aston Villa game, there is a way that you could play Zinchenko instead of him. And the news coming out of Emile Smith-Rowe's recovery is that he's being considered for that kind of role as well. Again, look, Emil Smith-Rowe gives you a lot more going forward and ball carrying, but perhaps you'd lose quite a lot of, break-up play. And Vieira, who played that position very well against Villa, is obviously an option. I think we're going to see Arteta do what Arteta does, which is pick the same players if he can. And he's been very vocal about saying that top quality players need to be able to play 70 games a season. Fair enough. So Granit Xhaka, who's had a week off, probably nailed him to start that game. And Odegaard to start as captain. The Aston Villa game was a game of two halves for him as well. I thought he was largely anonymous and didn't really appear. He missed an absolute sitter, which could have been pivotal, but then grew into the game. And over a season that we've seen him so far, I love everything about the way he plays football and the way he, not only berates referees who don't look after Saka or don't penalise people for tackling Saka, the way he lifted Tomiyasu's chin up. I think he does a real captain's job, as a few of them do, but I also, his creativity up front is just wonderful and very Arsenal-like to watch. So we really come to the front three. I have been vocal about Eddie Nketiah for a while. I do think that Eddie Nketiah deserves a rest or a break. It's not me being critical of him. His goals have dried up. Having said that, it was him that laid off the pass that Odegaard should have buried. So he would have had an assist in that game. And he had a header, which I think he took brilliantly and just hit a crossbar, as well as a few other involvements that could have led to a goal. One idea here is that we're playing Eddie through a goal drought so that he scores and regains his fitness. And Jesus is coming back soon, so is there any point in dropping him? Martinelli off the bench last week looked rejuvenated, and that rest seemed to do him some good. And I kind of want the same thing for Eddie Nketiah, but it may be tinkering too much to put Trossard or Martinelli up front and replace Eddie Nketiah. Perhaps, though, in this game might be where he gets subbed off because he has played every minute since Jesus was injured. I would expect that Martinelli will start on the left, that Saka will start on the right, and that Eddie Nketiah will start up front. But we do now have options. It would be fantastic to see us go 2 or 3 goals up, that Reece Nelson could come in, that Emil Smith-Rowe could come in, and that we might be able to start resting some of these players. There are a lot of games coming up. So, prediction for the match. Well, Leicester's home form has been pretty woeful. I think it's 12 points from a possible 33. They really haven't been firing as many goals as you would expect. They've lost 5 Premier League games from winning positions this season, so some comfort if we do manage to go down. I hope that we come out of the traps with all that confidence that we've shown for most of the season that seemed to sort of drain away in the fatigue of, defeat against Everton and the stuttering performance against Brentford and then the defeat against Man City, where if you took the mistakes out of it, I think we outplayed Man City. However, there was that draining confidence which we really saw in the first half of Aston Villa. I was really hoping that we'd come out, really full of creativity and buzz. We didn't. But then the way that game ended and the week off they've had, I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll come flying out of the traps at Leicester and we, score a couple of goals which will, put extra pressure on Leicester, who are in a relegation battle, but I don't think anybody really expects them to go down. I certainly don't. Now, we have won 5 of our past 6 games away in the Premier League. We've already matched this last season's tally of 9 away wins in the Premier League. So, my Nostradamus prediction is I do think we'll come out of the traps really quickly with energy and creativity and flair, and we will score a couple of goals in the first half unanswered, and the final score will be 3-1. That's my prediction. Listen, it's based a lot more on hope than on fact. There's a case to be made here for a 2-2, and I certainly wouldn't take Leicester lightly. It's not inconceivable that they could beat us 2-1. I think what we found out against Villa is that there is character in this team and that there is destiny in this year. 2023, we've waited long enough for a league. It's coming home. Back to North London, where it belongs, of course. I will, of course, be back tomorrow with a post-match analysis and hopefully celebrating. And love to hear your comments, your score predictions. Don't forget to click like if you liked it. That's, after all, the least you could do. And if you're not already a subscriber, then why not click subscribe? Lots of love.